Okay, let's get into it. For context, I'm a petite, soft-spoken 19-year-old girl and was taking summer classes at a community college this summer. One of the classes I took was public speaking, which met on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This guy, I don't even know his name. I could immediately tell he was one of those kids. You know, angry young man who makes no effort in school and blasts Limp Bizkit. He really did this. To get from our classroom that was on the second floor, you had to go down a hallway, down a stairwell to the first floor, through the main lobby and out of the sliding doors. He started waiting for me after class and following me all the way down this route to my car. It didn't matter if I pretended to be on the phone, had both earbuds in, kept my head down, or literally power walked away from him, gave him the bare minimum responses and the like. He would wait for me, follow me, try to walk with me, the whole way talking to me and asking me questions, like asking me about each of the cars I drove to school, since my family has to share cars. Even after I subtly dropped that I had a boyfriend, he didn't stop. So he definitely knows my car. I got a very bad feeling after a while of this happening, and told the class's professor. She immediately took it seriously, notified campus security, and told me to always stay after class so she could walk me to my car. However, true to form, the guy stopped showing up to class. For at least 2 or so weeks. I thought I was fine and that the crisis had been averted, and it was for a while, until one day he showed up to class again. As soon as I saw him enter the room, my heart dropped. During the class, I slipped a note to my professor, telling her that he was the kid in the blue shirt. She told me to hang around after class. I did, and so did the guy and another female student. Before he tried to talk to the professor about why he should pass the class, despite never showing up or doing any of the work, the professor asked me and the other girl to wait out in the hall. From the hall, we could hear him yelling aggressively at the professor. He eventually left, came out into the hallway we were waiting in, pointed at me and said, "Wait for me." Mind you, I have no idea who this kid is. I instantly got the heebie-jeebies and rushed back into the room to tell the professor, who was equally creeped out. Having overheard our conversation, the other female student came back into the room approximately 10 minutes later and told me and the professor that the man was standing in the hall waiting for me. The professor called campus security multiple times, phoned the front desk, but she received no responses. So we took it into our own hands and came up with a plan to leave the classroom together, pretending to be in very deep conversation with each other. We would walk past the guy without even looking at him, and walk down the stairwell to the main lobby. His eyes bore into us as we passed him, and when we entered the stairwell, he stood up and started to follow us. The professor and I exchanged looks of terror, but kept our cool act up, stopping at the main desk in the lobby and pretending to converse with the secretary. The man passed us, still staring at us the whole time, and walked out of the sliding doors to where he was out of our field of vision. We literally had to track down the campus security ourselves and tell them everything that had happened. My professor was furious. After we saw the security camera footage of him skulking around outside, she contacted the local police because she and I both had that very, very strong gut feeling that this kid was not right and that we weren't safe around him. So that public speaking class was from 3 to 5 p.m., and I had another class from 6 to 8 p.m., so I would usually drive to Wawa or something in that hour gap. However, there was no way in hell I was going anywhere now, because I knew the man was waiting for me to do so. For over an hour, me, the professor, security, and the secretary all tried to figure out just who this kid was. None of us knew his name, because he literally never came to any of his classes. There weren't any photo IDs next to the class roster, and approximately half of the original class stopped showing up, so we couldn't use a process of elimination. All we had was the security footage of him. I was escorted to and from my next class, and to my car at the end of the night. The security officer asked me to point out my car, and when I did, he exclaimed, "Oh wow, so he was parked right next to you." Confused, I asked what he meant, and he told me that he had been watching more security footage, and the guy got into the car parked right next to me, waited in there for a long time, and eventually left. The thing is, I knew for a fact that I hadn't parked next to anyone when I arrived to the school, because the lot was practically empty since it was summer. After finally getting home that night, I was the only person home for a few weeks, go figure. Local police did drive-bys of my home all night, and a well check. When I returned to the school 2 days later for my Thursday classes, I was informed of some chilling information. The footage showed him waiting for me in his car on Tuesday after our shared class, which I had already been told. But it also showed him coming back to the parking lot at 8 p.m. when my class got out, and sitting in his car. I never told him about my schedule or any other classes while I was talking with him. This whole time, my public speaking professor was filing reports, making complaints to the school for their incompetency, and even got a lawyer because she felt so uneasy about the kid that if he showed up again, she would walk out. I was in contact with the president of the entire college, the director of security, police, and the like for days. They told me that he was banned from campus, and everyone was on watch for him, and that if he was spotted again, he would be asked to leave. Until the director of campus security, a middle-aged man, called me and told me that he had identified the kid and talked to him via cell phone. He told me that the guy, and I quote, just wanted to be my friend, and told me that whatever I was doing with the guy, literally running away from him, probably made him think I was flirting with him. My professors were absolutely furious, and excused me from physically attending class for the rest of the semester. I'm still always on edge all the time, knowing that he knows what cars I drive, and for all I know, he could have followed me home. I still don't even know his name, and I hope I never have to learn it. This is probably going to be a long read, so please bear with me, as this story has a lot of details. The reason I wanted to share my experience is because I know a lot of people have at one time in their lives dealt with someone who was either super creepy or began to stalk them. So here goes. Here is a short history of how this all began. I was about 16 when my mother told me a friend of hers needed a babysitter, and I was more than willing to take the job because I could always use the extra cash. I have a very close relationship with my mother, so I had complete trust in this friend of hers, as my mother doesn't trust just anyone. I began to babysit for her 10 and 7-year-old daughters. The oldest had a major attitude, but after I became their regular sitter, she wasn't too difficult to deal with. If you're curious as to why I'm sharing this, it's a vital detail to the story. Now let's fast forward through several years. I'm about 19 years of age now. I remember this because I had graduated from high school just the year before. And this was a major deal in my life, so it's all very vivid in my mind. I hadn't babysat for this family for about 2 years by this time. I was pretty busy with going to college, working my part-time job, and spending spare time with family and close friends. One day, my mother approaches me and asks me if I would be willing to befriend a girl that her parents felt needed some socialization. She gave me a few details before I made my decision. She told me that the girl she wanted me to befriend was one of the girls I had used to sit for. I asked her who she was referring to, as I sat for several families when I was a full-time sitter. She told me who it was. I was slightly hesitant because of the attitude she had had when I first met her, but I was always open to helping other people in any way that I could. I began to get together with her every once in a while. I would invite her to small gatherings with some of my other friends, but only if there were some younger ones with us, like their little sisters or something. I was always in groups of people of various ages, usually around the age of 13 plus, and always with both guys and girls. My older friends and I were sort of the big sisters of the group, so that's why we were always happy to have these types of get-togethers. She slowly began to open up with me. She began to share with me that she was dealing with depression, and often felt that she was unloved by her family and friends. She also told me that she had contemplated suicide, and was currently cutting herself. Well, the reason I took to her more than the younger ones is because I had dealt with those exact same thoughts and feelings when I was around her age. So I would do my best to give her a listening ear and a shoulder to lean on. I would give her some advice that I thought might benefit her. Once she began to feel she could trust me, I tried to broaden her horizons, but things slowly would take a strange and eventually sinister turn. Now, when I would try to invite her to our usual get-together or social events, she started to seem very standoffish. I was a little surprised, but not much, because I knew how difficult things were for her, and it did take her some time to warm up to people. Eventually, she began to try and drag me along with her when she had her "I don't want to be here" attitudes. For example, we would go to the house of another friend of mine. There would be maybe 6 or 8 of us total, and we would watch some movies or do something else. This was before the days of social media and the everyone has a cell phone era. She seemed to want to go, but as soon as we got to wherever it was, she wanted to leave. She would pull me aside and say, "I don't want to be here. Let's go." Well, at first I was kind and would tell her, "Come on, let's just stay for a little while. If you still don't want to stay, we'll leave right away." I soon learned that she didn't want to stay, even if everyone else was having a great time. She eventually kept pulling me aside whenever we were in a group gathering, so I eventually stopped inviting her, because all she wanted to do was leave, no matter what the circumstances were. I mentioned this because it's another vital part of the story. I would just spend time with her every once in a while, just her and I. She began to call me on a daily basis. It started with 2 or 3 times a day, and eventually it got up to 7 or 10 times every day. As I said before, this time in my life I was always extremely busy, so I wasn't always home. I had my own telephone line because I was able to pay for it myself. I had an answering machine, not voicemail, because I was too cheap to pay for a feature I didn't need. Anyway, I would have to change the tapes way too often because of how much she would call me and leave message after message. She would leave messages like, "Where are you? Why aren't you answering my phone calls? Who are you with?" That started to get a little too weird, even for me. Even when I told her that I wasn't always home until late in the evening, or even nighttime, so all she had to do was leave one message, and as soon as I got home I'd return all of the messages I had for the day. That didn't deter her for continuing to do this for every single day. I began to get really annoyed, but stupid me didn't listen to my gut instincts. I kept telling myself, she just needs a friend. It's not her fault. I would soon learn that this was just not the case. Eventually, I drifted away from her for a bit, not intentionally, just because things in life seemed to speed up, and I got even busier than before. I would have very few times that I could get together with a friend or two, maybe going out to eat, shopping at the mall, or even seeing a movie. Out of nowhere, she began showing up wherever I was, and no, I didn't tell her where I was going or who I would be with. Like I said, I had pretty much drifted away from spending time with her. We lived in a pretty big suburb, so it's not like it would have been easy to know where to find me. I began to get really creeped out, because I thought it was a little too coincidental that she was everywhere I was when I would be doing anything recreational. She even found out where I worked and what college I was going to, something that I had never told her. She was obviously not college age, so why was she at my college campus with her mother? She wasn't even in high school yet. And that's not even the creepiest part yet, though. There's even more to this story. When I was on break from college, I had the time to spend with family and close friends. I did get together with her a couple of times, still not listening to the creep meter I had going off. I was so stupid. Well, things took an even more weird and unexplainable turn. She would ask to spend the night, and I didn't really do sleepovers anymore since I was of age and pretty much leading my own life. But she was still a young one, so I would invite her every once in a while to stay over. Somehow I have no memory of how this happened. She wouldn't leave. It's like she spent the night and just never left, without an invitation, of course. I had told her that she couldn't stay with me because she had her own life, and so did I. She got very angry with me, and for several days refused to leave. Thankfully, I was still living at home, and my mom had to step in and pretty much tell her bluntly to get out. She had a little temper tantrum that night, but she did end up leaving. By this time, I had been fed up with her irrational and erratic behavior. I was avoiding her like the plague. I didn't call her back. If she was somewhere where I was, I would duck into hiding, so to speak, and try to lose her in the crowd. That didn't stop her from increasing her strange behavior. Her family even did some things that I feel sort of helped her to stalk me more. Now, this is not something I'm making up. This actually happened. She moved to a street around the corner from where I live. And that's not the scary part. Her and her family moved into a house, which from her living room window, you could see directly into our backyard, and from there you could see the window to my bedroom. I only know this because I found out where she had moved, and my mom was still friends with her mother, so I remember going over there once when she wasn't home. When I looked out their living room window, I could see our house and my bedroom window from our backyard. We had a chain link fence, so you could see everything. I got the chills when I saw that. When we got home, I informed my mom, who had been so busy socializing that she didn't even notice. That's when my mother tried to talk to her mom and tell her about the situation. Her parents both just ignored my mom's warning. My mom tried to ask them to talk to her about backing off, but that didn't happen. Things just escalated from there. Her mom even tried to convince me to stay friends with her and wanted to pretty much pawn her own daughter off on me. I don't even remember what she said to try and convince me. I just remember saying to myself, "Okay, lady, you're just as nuts as your daughter." It wasn't long before the most sinister and disturbing parts happened. This was the last straw. I was home alone one day. She was still living in the stalker house, so this had to be how she knew I was the only one home. I wasn't talking to her. I had even changed my phone number and told my friends to absolutely not give it to her, which they respected and happily obliged. Anyway, as I said, I was home alone. It was maybe about 10 a.m., and I was just getting out to take a shower and get ready to start my day. As soon as I get out of the shower, I hear the doorbell ring. I think nothing of it and go to answer the door. I always look through the peephole before I answer, something I still do to this day. I see several police officers standing out there. I got a sick feeling in the pit of my stomach, thinking something had happened to one of my family members. I answered the door and they asked me, "Are you B?" B is in reference to my stalker's name. I'm using that to protect my identity. I answered, "No, she doesn't live here." The officer then asks, "Do you have any identification with you?" I answered, "Of course, but it's in the back of my house. I'll have to go get it now." Now mind you, I'm totally confused as to why they're asking me for my ID. The officer then proceeds to tell me that he has to come with me when I go to the back of the house. I just nodded in agreement, but still confused as to what was going on. We go to the bedroom, grab my ID, and I show the officer who I am. He just says, "Okay, thank you. Maybe we sit down for a moment and talk to you?" I of course agreed, and motioned him to the back of the living room, where the other officers joined us. We sit down and they tell me that they received an anonymous phone call that there was a young lady that lived at my address by the name of B that was extremely suicidal and may have already taken her life. I sat there for a moment in complete shock. I told them that she used to be a friend of mine, but that I hadn't talked to her for quite a while, and that she absolutely did not live there. They asked me if I had any contact information for where she was. Thankfully, I still did. I gave them her address and phone number. They thanked me for my time and left. I thought that would be the end of it. After they left, I called my mom immediately. She proceeded to tell me to come to her workplace until I had to go to my classes for that day. So I drove to her office. She owned the business, so it was no problem. I stayed there until I had to go to class, and then went on with the rest of my day, although shaken up quite a bit. The rest of this story is from a third-party perspective. All of my close friends knew about the situation by this time, because her behavior was way too psychotic for me, and I was going to do whatever I needed to be safe. I believe a few friends of mine and myself were at a coffee shop, one of the internet cafes from back in the day, and we were talking when another mutual friend walks in and comes right up to us. "I have to tell you something," he says, looking directly at me. Apparently, a few days before, they had run into B and said that she had looked exactly like me. My jaw dropped and I asked, "What do you mean?" We in no way looked similar, at least to me. She had gotten clothes that would be similar to what I would wear, dyed her hair like mine, and dressed up to look exactly like me. I was shocked to the core. Now, the timing for me was perfect. I say that because I was getting ready to move away from the area, because I was starting a new job in life that had taken me in that direction. My family was moving away too to be near me. So we did, in fact, move away. It was the best thing to happen to me, because she started to get worse over time. She began to harass my close friends, trying to get my whereabouts, my address, the town I had moved to, my new phone number. They didn't give her any information, but like I said, it didn't stop her from trying to find me. Now let's fast forward to 2012. Mind you, the stalking began around the year 2000. Obviously, since it's 2012, social media is a big thing, and of course I had a Facebook account. I didn't even think of my privacy, because to me, all that was long gone and I had eventually forgotten about B. One day I go to sign on, and take a wild guess as to who tried to friend me on Facebook. My heart sank for a second, and the first thing I did was delete her request and block her ass. Thinking I had taken care of the eerie online encounter, I was wrong yet again. She began to have friends of hers message me, asking me why I didn't accept her request. Why did I block her? I blocked each and every person that contacted me, until suddenly the messages stopped. Not quite to the end yet. Sorry everyone, I really didn't want it to be this long, but it's just how the story goes. The last run-in I had with her online was when she tried to contact me through every social media account I had. Twitter, Instagram. I blocked her, of course. She proceeds to try and make fake accounts with my photo and name. As you must know, by now I'm more assertive and didn't take crap from anyone. I had all the fake accounts closed, reported them to the social media outlets, but not before getting as much information as I could, reporting her to the proper authorities. Thankfully, I had documented everything that happened in the past and kept it all stored away. What can I say? I'm a pack rat. Once I get the reports out, the contact stopped. I also changed my name that I use on every social media account that I have. Instead of my legal name, I use my middle name instead. This is one thing she doesn't know about me. No one except my immediate family knows my middle name. I also put everything on super private and set some high security measures. One last fast forward. May 2016. I turn my phone on, and all of a sudden my phone says no service. I knew there had to be a mistake. I called the phone company. I asked them why my phone had no service since I had just paid my bill. They looked onto their system and proceeded to tell me that in their notes, they received a phone call just a few hours earlier that morning from a young lady. They assumed it was me, I guess. And she said that she had a new phone and that the number needed to be transferred to this new phone. When they told her that the name didn't match on the account, somehow she got them to change the name on my account from my name to hers. I have no idea what she wanted to accomplish by doing this, and even worse, how the hell she got my number. I explained that this person was a longtime stalker, that I had reports to the police and the like. They had me go to their corporate office and changed everything back to my name on the account, my phone and a different number obviously, as well as putting some security measures on the account so that this wouldn't happen again. Now since then, so far, I haven't had any more incidents. I'm absolutely on high alert, because if she was willing to wait 16 years and still wants to find me for whatever reason, there's no way in hell I'm going to let my guard down. The only reason I didn't file a restraining order is because she did not and does not know where I live, and I want to keep it that way. However, if she thinks that I won't ever file one if she does find me, she's got another thing coming. So this was back in 2011. There were 4 girls living in the house, including myself. Parents' place, and I would sublet rooms. First girl was a childhood friend who moved in to get away from an abusive ex. Second girl applied via online ad, and was normal enough except for telling everyone her daughter was actually her niece, and having a fondness for MDMA, a party girl. The third girl was a run-of-the-mill insurance claim processor, the quiet type who kept to herself, and usually declined any invitation from the rest of us when going out or socializing. So Party Girl and I buy tickets to go to a concert out of town. Childhood friend can't get the time to get off work, and opts to stay behind, as does Quiet Girl. No surprise there. So Party Girl and I leave on our trip, and spend the night dancing away. Meanwhile, childhood friend comes home from work to find Quiet Girl sitting in the shower, screaming and crying with the bathroom door wide open. She asks if she's okay, and tries to calm her down. Quiet Girl says she wanted to make dinner for all of us and Party Girl, and I have ruined her cosmic plans. Childhood friend sees spoiled chicken breasts in the sink, and thinks that the poor thing just wanted to do something nice, and offers to go out to dinner together, as Party Girl and I will be back tomorrow night, and we can all do dinner then. While at the all-you-can-eat Chinese food restaurant, childhood friend notices Quiet Girl is stuffing her purse with food. This is odd. She's not wrapping it in napkins or anything. She's just plain shoving it in there. When they got home, Quiet Girl started talking all of this crazy stuff that made no sense, and the childhood friend gets a little nervous and goes to bed early, locks herself in her room, and nopes out for the night. When Party Girl and I arrive home the next afternoon, we notice a few things. Childhood friend is already at work, but Quiet Girl is sitting in the living room, on the couch, completely naked, and has covered her body in the stuffed animals that belong to the rest of us. What? Rotten chicken is still in the sink, and smells strongly of bleach and other chemicals. Knives are laying around pictures that have been removed from the walls. I go to my room, and see all the pictures of my dad have been piled up in the middle of the bed. I ask Quiet Girl about this, and she explains that I need to be reunited with my father. He died in 2003. This is pretty troubling. Party girl emerges from her room, wondering why her underwear is piled up in the middle of her bed, and several other possessions have gone missing. Quiet girl says she needed them for the ritual, and explains that we can find what we're looking for in the backyard. We find the charred remains of our things in the smoldering fire pit. Also troubling. We're both pretty angry at this point, and demand that she explains this behavior. This is where she goes full crazy, and explains that our souls are all linked together, and only through death can our bonds be truly realized. She explains that her and my cat are one soul, and he has been telling her about all of our sins and bad behavior. Also, that it's actually her cat. She then full-on threatens to end our lives as soon as the last member childhood friend has arrived. I grab the largest knife I own, while Party Girl and I barricade ourselves in my room in the basement. She calls childhood friend, telling her not to come home, as it isn't safe, and I call 911, as my life has been officially threatened by someone who's clearly lost her grip on reality. The cops arrive within minutes, and ask Quiet Girl her name. At this point, she just starts screaming her first, middle, and last names repeatedly, over and over again. She won't stop. My cat is trying to sneak out the front door, and I ask one of the officers to grab him for me. She begins to scream that it's her cat, and not to touch him. I'm in tears, and offer to retrieve his adoption papers. I'm terrified, and I don't know what to do. Party Girl is hiding behind me. Then Quiet Girl loses her shit, jumps up and starts attacking the officers. It took 3 of them just to pin her down and arrest her. Once she was removed, I wrote up a letter of eviction, and we began bagging up her room. And that's when we discovered that she was a schizophrenic who was off her schizophrenia medication, and also had a nice little camera set up, where she was also apparently doing a nude side hustle, as well as mailing our underwear to her clients. Her boyfriend came later that day to collect her things, as I had called him to notify him of the situation. He had been totally clueless. He accused the rest of us of running a drug ring party house and driving her insane. Not true at all. He was in complete denial of her cheating in internet activities. We changed the front and back door locks that night, and put new locks on each bedroom door as well. She later tried to serve me papers and sue me for wrongful imprisonment. I'm pretty sure the cops made that call, not me. Nothing ever came of it, obviously, and I haven't had a roommate I wasn't related to since. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. I have a little bit of an update here for you guys. I recently started streaming a little bit on Twitch. I don't know if you guys are interested in just hanging out and seeing a bit of gameplay of maybe Monster Hunter, or some games like that, maybe a few horror games, but I'll leave a link to my Twitch in the description of the video below. As always, if you guys like the video, please leave a comment or perhaps like or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you'd like to message me, or you'd like to send in a story for me to read, or you have a suggestion for a story I should read, the links to all of my social media will be in the description of the video below as well. This includes my Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, and now, of course, my Twitch account. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. But please, guys, be patient, because I do get a lot of messages, so if I don't respond to you right away within like a week or two, just be a little patient. I'll get to it as soon as I can. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the description of the email or message what the name of the story is, what the category of the story is, and how you would like to be credited in the video that the story appears in. If you guys are curious about the music used in this video, links to the music and the order in which the music appears will always be in the description below the video, so you can go ahead and check that out there. Last but not least, if you guys do enjoy my content, please take a look at my Patreon, And if you feel so inclined, maybe donate like $1 or something. Every little bit helps. It'll never be necessary, but of course, it's always an option if you guys would like to support the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.